So it's not really a trick question whether you would like to retire healthy or wealthy. It's kind of I wouldn't say a personal decision, but it is very personal to us, and there is no right or wrong answer. So most of us would really like to retire early, maybe as early as in our late 50s, and we'd like to retire with a large nest egg. But for most of us, that's probably just not going to happen. It's pretty tough to build up that large nest egg unless you started in your 20s. And I'm going to guess if you're watching videos like this, you're probably not in your 20s. You're probably looking at retirement and looking at where you need to be to get into retirement. So the decision is up to you and what you value personally. What will you be able to do in your 60s and 70s, and do you want to wait to 70 to go ahead and retire? Now, I will admit the new 70 is the old 65, or the old 65 is the new 70, however you want to say it, because we are living much longer, but do you want to give up those 5 extra years? I can tell you from my aspect and the way I feel, I'm glad I retired at 61. I've been retired a year now, and I don't know what I'll feel like at 65. It's 70 years old. I feel pretty good right now, but I went through a pretty major injury with my brain and had to spend some time in the ICU, and I got over that, so I'm back on the retirement train again. But I would hate to think that I went through that and maybe things didn't turn out as well as they did, and I wasn't retired. That would have been pretty bad if I'd have never seen any retirement days and things had turned out much worse than they did. But looking at it from that aspect, many people are going to have pretty good health into their 80s and, be getting around pretty good. I golf with a guy who's 88 years old, and walks 9 holes of golf. 88. He is my hero for sure. Gets around great, but for most of us, or a lot of us, that might not be the case. And like I say, for me, only 6 months into retirement and having this big injury, things could have really went the other way, and I could be where I'd never get to play golf again. So you got to think about, what do you think? What do you think your capabilities are going to be when you get into your late 60s, when you get into your 70s and your 80s? And you got to look at that. How much of that life do you want to spend, and how much do you enjoy working? For a lot of people, work is their enjoyment. They really like doing it. And for a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll retire from one job and go into another job that's more fulfilling for them and something that they want to do. And so you may not think about it, but when it comes to your health, there are things that you can't control. When you retire, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus. My wife actually has lupus. It's a sad disease. It really is. Luckily, she can get around just fine, but it's debilitating in some stages of that. Different things like I had the brain bleeder. I had the subdermal hematoma, and that was pretty rough. You never know which way your health is going to go. So you got to be careful, because those are things that you can somewhat control. You can live a healthy lifestyle, and you can control your health to a certain amount, but you can't control everything when it comes to your health. So if you do, go ahead and make that decision to prioritize your health. There may be some things that you need to do. Now, when my wife and I looked at it, because we started planning our retirement years ahead, when we got within a couple of years where we thought we could maybe retire, we started looking at it, and we decided to go ahead and lower our spending down to where we didn't need as much money, so we could go ahead and retire earlier than 65. And I think it ended up being a good decision for us. So what we did was we worked real hard at paying down debt. And by paying down that debt, we didn't need as much in our monthly income. So what that looked like for us was lowering our monthly expenses down by about $1,500 a month comparatively to what we were spending. So the last couple of years, of course, we were empty nested. We went ahead and we took all our money and we just started paying things off as much as we could made sure that we had no credit card debt, weren't carrying any silly debt like that, and got things paid off, and got to where by the time I retired, we could live on a much lower expense level than we had been. And so what we found in this first year of retirement is we're leading a pretty simple life. You know, other than travel, we're not spending a lot of money. We're, going out and spending a lot of time with our grandkids, going to games, things like that. I like to go fishing. I like to golf. My wife likes to spend time with her friends and her social network. And so she's doing a lot of that. And we're just not spending a lot of money other than the travel. The travel is pretty expensive. So that's where we're kind of looking at our budget and we're saying, well, we can take this trip and we can take this trip. And luckily the market did pretty good. So I'm talking to my financial guy about putting a little bit more money into our travel fund so we can do a little more traveling this year. So I'd like to pause the video for a minute and ask you to go down in the comments section and leave me a comment. Let me know where you're from. Let me know where you are in your retirement journey. Are you already retired? Are you enjoying it? Are you fixing to retire in 1 to 5 years? Let me know what's going on in your life. So many of the people that I worked with over my career, when you would talk about retirement, they would say, I don't want to discuss it. I don't even want to retire. And, you dig a little deeper into it, and what you'd find is for them, they would have more stress about not having money and what they were going to do in retirement than it was just easier to go ahead and keep working. And I really found that a little bit odd because they were hard workers. They were good workers. They were just completely scared of running out of money during retirement and what they were going to do in retirement. Now, I know a few of them, one guy in particular who I think he would have worked until he was 90 years old. He was probably one of the hardest workers I ever ran across. But unfortunately, he had an accident because he was kind of a health nut and he got in an accident on a bicycle versus car accident. And it took him about 4 or 5 years to recover from that. And he ended up coming back to work and he did pretty good. He had some short-term memory issues. But other than that, his knees were in pretty bad shape, but he could get around well, and he worked another 10 years, but he finally ended up having to retire. And it was so stressful for him when he did actually have to leave work and retire. I never forget it. He would still come by and see us once in a while, and I think he was enjoying retirement, but he wasn't going to let us know that he was. But he was a great guy. And he was just one of those that, like I say, he was just scared to death to retire because the stress of retirement was more than it was for him to just continue to work. So personally, in my decision, I would love to say that, in this first year, money's never been an issue and I've never thought about it, but that would be a lie. There are a lot of things going on. Of course, this was an election year, was pretty good for the stock market, but you're always waiting for that other shoe to drop. And luckily things have went along pretty good and we pretty much been able to stick to a budget, but there were a few months we really, the floodgates just opened and money was flying out back when I had my injury and I was in the hospital because my kids were, having to take time off of work and come see me. And, we were having to put them up in a hotel because I was out of town. And the floodgates opened up there a little bit, but I think we got it squeezed back down again now. So going into retirement, if you think you're not going to worry about money, you may still worry about money some, but you got to figure out how to limit that. And for some, you may want to consider going into a bridge retirement, basically where you go ahead and you think financially, well, I can do okay, but I'm not sure. Well, you can go ahead and bridge your retirement and work part-time if you want to. Go ahead and get a job working at a garden nursery or something that you're really going to enjoy. Mow greens at the golf course, something that's going to get you outdoors that you're going to enjoy more than working full-time, and bridge that retirement a little bit until you feel comfortable with the economic part of retiring. And unfortunately, you know, it's about half of Americans that end up retiring not because they want to, but because they have to, because of health issues, because they get laid off, their company goes bankrupt, something like that. You know, like I say, 50% of Americans are retiring because they have to retire. And, you know, when you're in your late 50s, early 60s, it's pretty hard to find another full-time job that pays as much as what you're making now. So I remember when I was in my 50s and people would ask me, they'd say, well, when are you going to retire? My response was a little odd. I would say, you know, if I'm in good health, I'm going to retire as soon as I can. Hopefully at 59 and a half, 60. I ended up waiting until I was 61. And I would say, because if I end up not liking retirement or if something goes wrong, I'll still be in good health and I can still go back to work. Maybe not at the same income level, but I'll still be able to go back to work if I need to. But you know what? If I'm in really poor health and I'm not going to be able to enjoy my retirement, I'm not going to be able to travel, fish, play golf, and do the things I want to do, I'll probably go ahead and stay working because, you know, I did enjoy my job. I did enjoy my work. It was very fulfilling. You know, and there in the end, the last probably 4 or 5 years, it wasn't as stressful as it was in the earlier years. So, you know, I would tell people, yeah, if my health goes south on me, I'll probably just stay here and work a few extra years and go ahead and build up that retirement and make sure my wife is taken care of. So it was kind of like I say, it was an odd response when people would ask me and they'd kind of shake their head and go, yeah, that is weird. You know what? I hope you've gotten something out of this video, and if you have, I'd appreciate it if you reach down, hit that like button, and watch this video next.